so we have a treat today. We have Rick. He's closed on one facility, and he has a second one under contract. We're going to only talk about the first one as a student showcase today, and he's going to go over like finding, funding, running, deal analysis, all kinds of stuff like this, just how we kind of figured everything out. So Rick, thank you for being student showcase. Let us know how you want to get started.
Okay, well, thanks, Stacy.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, all right, thank you. So thanks, Stacy, and thanks, everybody. I very much appreciate the opportunity to share, what kind of my journey so far in the storage business. And I guess what I'll do is I'll start off by just telling a little bit about myself, if that's okay, just a couple minutes. I grew up in Western Springs, Illinois, which is a suburb of Chicago, about 30 miles maybe straight west. I played hockey all my life. I played at Northern Illinois for a couple of years and then transferred to the University of Kansas, which is where I graduated. I moved from there to Fort Worth and went to work for an accounting firm here in town. And that's what I've been doing. I've been working in the CPA profession in Fort Worth ever since I got here in January of 1985. I have always been I've always been very interested in the real estate business. And I closed my first real estate transaction that I didn't live in 92, so a little over 30 years ago. And I've been involved in single family homes, commercial office buildings, parking lots, strip centers, raw land transactions, tons of different partnerships. The vast majority of those I put together either by myself or with another guy, and typically with a bunch of partners. And quite frankly, one of the things that I found over the years was that I would spend about as much time managing the partners and the relationships as I would managing whatever the project happened to be. And that to me was somewhat of a turnoff. The one asset class that I had never been involved in before was self-storage. And through the years, a guy who's a really good friend of mine and a real estate broker, and he's worked on several different partnerships, different transactions for groups I've been involved in over the years. He recommended, he specializes in self-storage actually, and he actually a couple of years ago recommended that I reach out to Stacy. Well, because I am still, I'm a partner in a national firm. It's a 50+ hour a week full-time job. So I really didn't have the opportunity to reach out to her till last summer. And in August of last year, I signed up for the Turnkey Acquisition Program. I decided that not only did I find the opportunity very abundant, I thought Stacy sounded like an even more of a qualified professional than she had been described to me as. And so I felt really good about the idea of going into it. And so I did. And right away, I started receiving, information on lots of different opportunities. And I started kind of narrowing down some of the ones I thought would fit better than others. And so I found two that I really liked, and I went out and visited one. What
was your criteria?
So
started. Now you kind of have more of an idea, but like when you first started.
So for me, based on certain things, and so one of them was just simply the fact that I needed to find opportunities that would be large enough where I could have a management company manage them. And there are two reasons for that. Three. One is I didn't know anything about storage and how to operate them. That would be kind of important, right? Number two would be that based on the costs involved and everything, if it's too small, the economics just really don't work. And then number three, I've always kind of thought that if you have an opportunity to scale, then how is it that you go about doing that? And for me, it would not be managing them myself. It would be finding, initially at least, a management company. At some point in the future, it could very well be that, like Stacy, you've got a team. Well, I don't have a team. And if I had a team at some point in the future, then that's what I would do. But until then, I would plan on using a management company. So that was really, so it had to be big enough to make that fit and small enough where it was something that I could afford. And I didn't want to have outside partners. That was another thing. I wanted to do it with just my wife and me. Which means just me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So like just in your thought process, because like we all know that you need to buy something that's big enough to be able to afford a third-party management company, which is not a small facility. Right. So that means you have to pay more money. So like in your mind, how were you thinking about money and like what number that you'd be able to afford, or like kind of what was that process like for people that are, like I can't afford a big deal?
So, well, I guess big is a relative term. I was thinking that it would be somewhere where the purchase price would be somewhere probably in the range of $2 to $5 million. And then depending on, take it from there, that would kind of determine how big the place was, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But another thing that
like, okay, 2 million, and I know I have to put 30% down. So that's kind of how I was thinking, or like in your mind, what were you thinking? And like, how are you going to fund this thing?
Well, so what I actually found was that self-storage actually qualifies for SBA lending. And so you can get up to 90%, depending on various different criteria. In the first one that I did, the occupancy was so low when we bought it. It's 42 or 44% when we closed on it. And, as anybody that's ever closed on one of these things knows, not all of them are paying. Okay. They kind of leave a few in there. And that certainly happened to us. So, but the operating expenses are really pretty low. So what that does is if you're acquiring it based on the occupancy that's in there, and you somehow go from that 42 or 44 to, let's say, 80% over a period of time, your net income will skyrocket. And so I'm going to share my screen for just a second here.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So
we're getting the numbers view from the numbers guy.
Well, no, not yet. You're not.
I'm saying, like, you look at numbers a little bit different than I think a lot of people. So
you're going to.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get this thing off of here. I don't know if that's bothering it. Can anybody see this?
Yeah, that looks great. It's how we can see Texas. Yeah.
Okay, so this is the state of Texas, and so the place that we ended up buying is in Odessa. So it's straight, like here's Dallas, Fort Worth, Arlington. Everybody's heard of the Cowboys, and you drive straight west on Interstate 20, go all the way from Midland to Odessa, and that's about 4.5 hours straight west of Fort Worth. So it's real easy to get there, simple.
Well, and one thing that you did really good, so I mean, obviously you're in turnkey acquisition, so like we're feeding you deals. But like one thing that I really, really think that you do very well is that you call you meet the owner on Zoom, you call the owners, and you actually go there and you meet them.
So actually, in addition to that, there's another component that I think is really important for people to keep in mind, and that is to act quickly.
And to act, and this is something that you do very well. Like if there's a deal, you're like, I'm on it, I'm out.
You have to get on it.
Yeah.
Because first of all, if you do, then what happens is then the sellers get interested because they know, like, wow, I've got a hot one. I've got Rick coming in here. They just talked to him. Wow, this guy really must be interested. Yes. And they of course, who wouldn't like that? And the other thing is that in the event you don't do that, well, it might be the best deal that ever happened, and you don't ever get an opportunity because somebody else comes in and takes it. So the other thing that I thought was really important was when looking at these, I was thinking, well, you don't want to buy just one, because think about it. If you're opening your first stock brokerage account, you wouldn't buy just one stock. What if you bought the wrong one? And I looked at this the same way. Like, what if we buy the wrong facility and decide, oh, well, we ought to sell it, it's not working, and whatever. Well, you might miss out on the next 10 that could have been phenomenal opportunities. And so another thing was, I didn't want to burn what I thought would be all the money that I could put into this series of opportunities. I didn't want to do all that at one time. And so that was also important. So the first thing I did is, I did go out there, and I'll show you guys some pictures of kind of what it looks like. So the name of the place is called Presto Storage. This would not be, so this is what would be referred to as a Class C facility. It's actually two facilities. One is in Dixie, which is very close to the high school that you all may have heard about at Friday Night Lights. It's right by Permian Basin High School. But it's all, outside. There's nothing wrong with it. It looks fine. It's not, it's not dilapidated or anything like that. It's just old. Some of these buildings were built in the 1960s, some in the 80s, some in the 90s, just over a period of time. They just kept adding more. So that's kind of the lay of the land there. Then what I did is I thought, okay, how is this going to work money-wise? And so I had reached out to the management company and asked them to do a pro forma in addition to the one that Stacy's group did. I wanted to see how the two compared. I took these and kind of blended what I thought were most realistic numbers that I could see, and went through years 1 through 6, rental income, and each of the various expenses, and then NOI.
So
and I used
so this is a 2.5. You purchased it for 2.5 million.
2.3.
2.3 million.
Yep, 2.3.
Expenses are like, I guess, go through this. What are your expenses?
So the first thing had to do with the loans. What did I want to do there? And I had hoped to get an SBA loan of like 85, 90%. And they said, no way, it's not going to work. We won't do that because the occupancy is way too low. And although I kept stressing that that's where the opportunity was, it just didn't fit their criteria. So I borrowed 1.725, which is 75%. Then I layered on top of that a second 10% loan. And the reason I wanted to do that was, again, preserve my own money and lever it as much as possible. Because look here, so I ended up putting in $480,000. Exactly. That's what I put into the partnership, 480. Okay. And when I say the partnership, the partners are my wife, me, and then we put money in for each of our 4 kids to be a 7.5% partner. So my wife and I own 70%, and they each collectively own 30. So then,
so how, like with the 10%, is that the same bank that gave the loan for the 10% versus the 75%?
So actually, that's a typo. I ended up not using the same bank. They offered to do it, but I ended up not doing it there. What I did is I pledged a securities account. They would have done it though. They would have done 10% as a non SBA loan and 75 as an SBA loan. But I need to change that. But I ended up using Schwab Bank, and Schwab Bank is a bank, kind of owned by Charles Schwab, the guys that have the stock things. And I just pledged, it just became more difficult at the bank. It wasn't going to be impossible. And I just kind of ran out of time, and I set it up at the Schwab Bank, where I just
So how did you come up
borrowed
with
the
this
money.
idea? You're just like, no, I need to figure out like how to come up with more money. I don't want to do it. So let me just start asking banks, or like kind of what was your thought process on that?
So what I wanted to do was provide our partners the opportunity to have this and this have the highest multiple possible.
Okay.
Okay. So in other words, here, in the event things go according to our plan, at the end of 6 years, the equity we would have in here is about 2.9 million. And that's starting with 480. And that is a 6 multiple. So that would mean that our partners would receive a, 5 times. We would take out 2.9 million and distribute it to the partners. If we were to sell it for 4.6, basically 2 times what we pay for it. So it's the creation and use of leverage. That's really what it had to do with. Mm-hmm. And another thing is I do have the ability to, if you look down here below, you say, okay, well, the net tax, that pre-tax cash flow, it'll probably lose about 34,000 this year, where, I may actually have to shovel some in. Well, that's not, it's not a terribly large amount, and it wouldn't go forever according to this.
Right. Yeah. So you're spending 35,000 to make 2.9 million.
Well, I might, but I might not, because I put an extra 60 in there to start.
Yeah. On the right here, like all those numbers and stuff. So like
these over here,
down payment was 345, but how did you end up at 481? Kind of go through that so everybody understands.
Well, I just thought, okay, because I needed to have money, this is just kind of the fees that were charged. You had miscellaneous. I didn't know that, these, I probably need to update this to see exactly what it was, but I estimated that there would be 480,000 is what I would need to put in, and not have to be putting money in like right away every month or anything. And I figured we would have some fix up that would happen. And actually that one has been substantially less than 25,000. We only spent about 5,000 so far. We may end up with more, but
oh, so you said like, okay, like when you buy this thing, you're going to put $25,000 of just like CapEx, just in case you need to fix stuff up or whatever.
I figured I would have to. Yeah. Yep.
And so far you've only had to put $5,000 in. What was the $5,000 for?
Actually, some of it was for our gate needed to be fixed, and one of the gates needed to be fixed, and we put in these new access spider technology. The things to get in. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. And the gate just kept opening and closing all day long.
It was broke. Okay, so needed a new one. Now, when you went out to go look at this property, like, so you went over immediately, you met the owner, did the walkthrough, and to talk about just like, what was the conversations between you and the owner to get to the point where you could get it under contract?
So the interesting thing was, so I live in Fort Worth, and this guy lives about 15 minutes from me. And when I reached out to him, he was certainly a very nice guy, but also the thing that I liked about him the most is he was free flowing with information. And he just said, look, you know what, this place will be a great place, but we're just done with it. When he when he and his partner bought it, they bought it out of a repossession, a foreclosure from a bank. They had no tenants in there. And, he considered the fact that in 5 years they'd gotten to 44% somewhat miraculous. And honestly, I really didn't blame the guy. But he was just kind of worn out, exhausted, and they managed this thing themselves.
Okay.
And I think that also beat him into the ground.
Yeah. So when you were looking at this property, it was making how much money per month? Like on the purchase side? 1,000 or something.
The revenue?
Yeah.
So when we bought it, the gross rent was about $17,000 a month.
Okay.
All right. And so what we needed was more. But who doesn't?
Right.
So that was about $204,000 is about what they were collecting.
Okay.
In a year. Okay. And so I thought, well, to get to 260 here, that's not like, we ought to be able to do that with a little effort. Now we're spending money on advertising, the click stuff, all that. And the management company is more expensive than doing it yourself, of course. But so I've got another thing to show here.
Talk about the management company too now. So you're how did you pick this one? And then what was the process of hiring them and this kind of stuff? How working with Copper, what's it like?
So Copper Storage Management, which is also, they're based in Florida. Same guy referred me to him. I didn't know a thing about him. And I reached out to them, talked with them. And if you can get past the confusing part that basically everybody in the company's last name is Copper, they are great. In my opinion, they have fantastic people. They've done a great job. One of our students, whose name is Z, and she lives somewhere east of Dallas, I believe.
Yeah.
I spoke with her, and she had them. She has them, or did at least when I talked with her.
Yeah.
She was using them. And she said, well, they're great in the beginning at onboarding and everything. But once it got going, she was concerned about some of the expenses and all that. And I thought, well, the thing I'm most concerned about is the onboarding. That's what I am most hopeful of, smooth sailing. And they did do that. They did a great job of that.
Well, that's the hardest part.
Yeah, we closed on this thing January 2nd. So it's just barely been 3 months. And I would say, based on my 3 months, I'm thrilled. So let me show you. I actually just got the March financial statements yesterday.
Oh yeah, cool. Let's see.
So here's how it's gone so far. And this is based on, cash collected. They don't, and some of these expenses kind of.
Wow, they went from 17 to, 17, 18, 13. Okay, so total, okay.
Yeah, so it's almost 50,000 so far, which is basically, that's essentially what they had been collecting.
Okay.
About 7. Okay, yeah. So it didn't go down a lot. I actually thought it would go down a bunch.
Yeah.
Because I thought a lot of people might move out.
What was the occupancy on this when we bought it? Was it full? I can't remember.
No, it was
it was like 42%. You said,
yeah,
right?
it was. Yeah, it was terrible.
Okay, all right.
So it's nothing but opportunity. Then when you look at some of these things that, like the advertising and marketing, so some of these, when I said they kind of have to even out, like over a period of time, these things will be more consistent per month than they are, because some of these, we didn't pay, they didn't get in the system right away. So
yeah, exactly. It's your first quarter. So you'll start seeing.
You really have to look at 3 months and kind of look at that and divide it by 3 rather than focusing on any particular month. That's what I would suggest.
But are they planning now for the advertising to spend the $2,000 a month?
No. They
No,
won't
okay, I
spend
didn't know, like,
2,000.
okay, what their
No, they
budget's
won't.
gonna be.
No,
Okay.
mm-mm.
I'm
No.
curious to see what the
It,
budget
it,
would be for our advertising. Our budget's around $1,000 a month.
so we are
Per facility.
increasing the point click thing from 500 because there are two different locations and we were at 500 per location. We're
Okay,
moving that to 750, and
okay,
then we're doing another thing that's 400 a month. So it'll be 1,900 up to 1,900 a month for a while.
mhm.
But
And so everybody, because we didn't say this, but what's the total square footage and the number of units?
okay, so it's 309 units and it's just short of 50,000 feet.
Okay, all right, okay. Yeah,
And
that's
there are 4 offices there, 1 apartment. The apartment, actually, the maintenance guy that we hired is living in there. And by the way, I didn't say this, but I will answer any questions. If anybody else has any questions, feel free to fire away. I'm happy to talk about any of it.
yeah, if you have any questions, just ask.
So, so far, I'd say it's been fine. It's not been, unbelievably fantastic. And I say that based on the fact that the occupancy has not really changed much. However, there is one thing that is, so let me pull up another. So here's our rent roll. So this is the rent roll that I pulled up this morning. And so you remember I was saying that before when we bought it, it was at 17,000 a month. So now, based on rent increases and insurance, there were essentially no people that they had on the insurance. So now, what we really are going to be getting is about 1254 divided by 2, so 627 plus 18, 764, 19,391. So it's really gone up about 2,000 a month in 3 months. So if we collected all of that over the next 12 months, it'd be 232,000. So it's still short of the pro forma for the first year. That was 259. So we've got work to do. But the great news is we've got tons of vacancy. So, we have 25,000 square feet that are vacant. So the occupied square footage is slightly higher than the number of units, the percentage, because some of the bigger ones are occupied. So,
So how does Copper Management work? Like, what do they do? Like, what does it look like working with the third-party management company?
So they collect the rent, they pay the bills. You can have various different options within their suite of services. You can hire them to do the accounting, the bookkeeping, and pay the bills and all that stuff. And you might say, well, you're a CPA, why don't you do that yourself? And it's like, well, because they do a fine job of it and it's dirt cheap. And I thought it'll really save me a ton of time by them doing it. So they pay the bills, they do all that. Then they collect the rent. And then they also hired a guy that we pay, and he's the kind of boots on the ground management guy, maintenance guy. So we
How did
pay
that
him.
process? Like, did they hire him and you pulled
Yes.
out of it?
Yeah.
You just
Yeah, they
trusted
hired him.
They just hired the boots on the ground person.
I've never spoken to him. Yeah.
You've never spoken to him? That's awesome. Oh my gosh. The boots
So
on the
you see,
ground part is so hard because they're just coming and going and stuff,
so you see this travel here. It's $1,562.
Mm-hmm.
So the field ops person from Copper jumped on a plane the first week after we closed and went out there and stayed there for 2 or 3 days, interviewing people, hiring this guy, training him, doing all kinds of stuff. They go through, they they audit the various different units. They look in them, see if there's stuff in them, see if there's anybody in them.
And y'all
Could
are
be
using
people.
the Vinci locks, right? Or what? How is the overlock system for y'all?
I don't know, but we lock them out. If they don't pay, they're locked out.
It's like, I don't know. That's what the management.
I don't know. That's right. I don't know.
That's perfect. I mean, this is where everybody should be like, straight like, look, I don't know. That's how I am too. I really have no idea.
I've only been there once. I've been there one time.
You've been there one time. That's it.
Before we bought it. Yeah.
Before we bought it. Yeah, that's it. So they're managing it all.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got some questions. So what did the contract look like? So everybody's asking about the third-party management company.
Okay.
What does the contract look like? How much are they charging? Like, just how does that whole thing work?
So the management fees are $2,600 a month.
I mean, $2,600 is really good for 300 units.
Now there's some add-ons. There's some add-ons.
There's the boots on the ground. There's the QuickBooks.
Yep. That's right. There's the QuickBooks. There's the
Do
boots
they
on the ground.
include in the management fee? Do they include the phones, or do you have to pay extra for somebody answering your phone?
So
I don't see that as a line item.
So this right here, that's part of it. This $660 a month.
Okay.
That's part of it too. So they spread it out into several different categories. So you don't look at this thing and think, oh my gosh, it's too much. They put it here.
They know what they're doing. That's how Pete does it too. He separates everything out.
Separate it all. That way it's kind of like, oh, do I have to add it all up?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay. So talk about the third-party management company and how that's all working so they can get their questions answered.
So really I have a kind of a point of contact. He's my customer service guy. And he is, the guy that I call or talk to when I have any questions about collections or any type of operation. He's a technology guy. He he coordinates with the marketing people just about, what we ought to do, this kind of stuff. Then there's the lady that's the CFO. I'm in contact with her whenever it comes to financial statements or, it takes quite a while to get all these different vendors and all this kind of stuff set up and in their system and the utilities and all that. That's been somewhat of that was actually a pretty big surprise to me how much of that stuff there was. But think about it's 3 months. It's settled down. It's really it was just really because I didn't know. And then there's a lady who is in charge of field operations, and she deals with, she looks at pictures and determines whether this guy needs to cut the grass or, any of that kind of stuff. She directs this guy, and she will go out there twice a year. That's the plan right now. So the other group of facilities that I have under contract is actually not that far from this. And so we're supposed to close on it next month. And if it happens, then she'll go out there and do the exact same thing for the new one. And at the same time, go over to this place. It's a couple hours away, but you
have a point of contact is like the customer service person, and then you have a field person, and then you have your boots on the ground person.
Yeah, but I've never talked to the boots on the ground guy.
Yeah, so she talks to the boots on the ground person.
Right.
And you just talk to the customer service and her is what you do.
Yeah, and the lady that handles the accounting. Yeah.
And then the accounting person. Okay, cool. And so Salim is asking, like, what are you paying for this? And obviously $2,600 for your boots on the ground is included not into the management fee.
No.
It must be repairs and maintenance, or what is it?
So yeah, this is $600 a month is what we're paying this guy. And the reason it's so low is because we let him live in the apartment.
Okay.
Which we consider to be, great for all of us.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And the apartment is actually not that bad. Like you might think, oh my gosh, but it's got air conditioning, heating, nice shower thing and all that. It's really not bad.
Yeah.
So to say, okay, how much is it costing? Okay, it'd be $2,600 plus the $660 plus the $600 for the guy, the maintenance guy. And then somewhere in here, I don't know where it is, but there's another 500 for the accounting services that they're providing. And I don't think that's included in anything else. I don't really see it, but it's probably about somewhere in the range of 4,000 to 4,300 a month.
So you started out at 17,000. So Salim, I think you came on a little bit later, but he purchases. We'll go back to your sheet. He purchased it for 2.3 million. It was making $17,000 a month. So now you have expenses are coming out to $15,000 a month, and it's making $15,000 a month. So essentially, you're breaking even, and for the first year, you may have to come out of pocket.
Right. A little
Right?
bit. Yeah.
That's what you're looking
Yeah.
at. And then the second year, maybe a little bit out of pocket, but not too much.
Right.
And it takes 18 to 24 months just to stabilize these things. So, I always tell everybody just how you just should know that for the first couple of years, you're really just stabilizing this. You're going to start making your money in years 3, 4, and 5.
But
by year 5, you should be rocking and rolling.
But here's the thing, if anybody were to look on, Crexy or whatever, and look at these various different storage facilities that are for sale, what do they always show? Well, here's the pro forma. Here's the next 12 months pro forma. Well, if I were doing that, what I would do is I would take the income, whatever our income is. I wouldn't put all these management things in here. I would take those out and put in, what they all look like. And you could probably even do it right now, and it would look better than this thing does. And that's because I'm willing to pay for it, at least for a while. And, it may be that we leave these guys in there forever. I don't know. They also, there is another thing that I actually liked a lot about it. And that is if their occupancy increases in certain amounts, percentages and stuff, then they are incentivized and they start receiving 1% of the revenue. So, for example, and I don't remember, it generally is if the occupancy goes up by 10% or more. In the cases of complete, clusters that they're taking over, like this one is, they gave me a little bit of grace on that, and I think ours doesn't kick in till we hit 60% occupancy. But once we hit 60% occupancy, then they get 1% of the revenue. So let's just say hypothetically that took place in year 2. They'd get $2,900 a year extra. Like, so what? I'd be thrilled to have them get that.
Mm-hmm. Right, exactly. Yeah. So
Yeah.
they have an incentive of 1%.
And the 1% applies to all of the revenue,
Yeah.
not just the incremental part. But I was great with that. I'm thrilled about it because that tells you they're in it with you.
Yeah.
Our interests are aligned. And that was one of the things that I really like about it.
So Salim's asking, who are you using? He's using, because he came in late, he's using Copper Management. Copper has come and talked to the StorageNerds before. If you go into the portal, you will meet Bob Copper. And he came in for a whole hour and he talked about how third-party management works and how Copper Management works. So you can always rewatch that session.
He's a nice guy, super nice guy.
Yeah, he's great. He's a nice guy. I mean, they manage like 250 facilities.
Yes, all over the place.
For sure. And they're kind of one of the cheaper ones. There are some like smaller mom and pops that are like going to be cheaper and stuff, but like for a big company that manages a lot of facilities, they are like not that expensive.
So one of the things that I find really interesting, and I have no idea how they've done this, but they've been managing this thing for about little over 3 months. So they've put in a rent increase right away. So like this was $99 a month ago. They're 15% across the board on most of them. And that was kind of stair-stepped in there. Some took place in like the latter part of April. Some take place in May, that kind of stuff. The thing that I really am intrigued by, and I don't know how they did this, but this insurance, like the people that have taken the insurance now, it's climbing. Like I could look at this thing later this afternoon and it'll be higher because there'll be more people taking the insurance. And I don't know what they're doing to do this. And I think I get half of it. So
they implemented it. So the previous owner did not offer insurance. They've
they
implemented.
did, but they were getting like $160 a month. They had like
They just
15.
weren't making it mandatory or something.
They had like 15.
Yeah.
And I don't know what they've done, if maybe they've told people you have to have it. I don't know. And some of these things have gone from this $9.50 to $13. The going rate seems to be now $13.
But I mean, what's awesome is that you own this like $2.3 million facility, and you're like, I don't know. People just, they feel like you have to micromanage everything, but the truth is you can hand it off and delegate it.
Yes.
Which is what you're doing. And there's nothing wrong with not knowing every little tiny thing about the facility. I'm telling you,
so yeah. And I would say that honestly,
that's the whole point of hiring a management company.
Yes. A lot of my, this hasn't been scary. Part of that's because I've been involved in a lot of these different, probably over $100 million of transactions in the years. And, they don't all go well. And so, you can't go into these things expecting like everything's going to be perfect and freak out if the first day somebody moves out. It's like, oh my gosh, no, you can't do that. And Stacy, you were so helpful to me because so many times during the process between the time we got it under contract and the time we closed, which was about 3 months, you kept telling me, don't you dare back out of this. Not that I was going to, but those were like the words I would hear.
I talked you off the ledge a couple times.
No, well, just like, well, does this make sense? That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Those, yeah. Hey, we've got people living in some of these things back there. What's the deal? It's like, don't worry about it. It's going to be okay. Dave, just get them out of there, and that's so true. It's like at the end of the day, it's not complicated. There are a lot of details, a lot of minutia kind of stuff that has to happen daily. That's what I have chosen to have the management company do.
Yes.
And some people want to do that themselves. Some people think, oh, well, I need to do that myself so that I learn. And I get all that. I just didn't have the time for it. So I'm okay with that.
Yeah. So, the path that you took is perfect for you,
For me. It's been great so far. Absolutely.
And what I want to tell everybody is that if you want to buy storage, but you are not doing that, should be a trigger that you maybe are looking for the wrong kind of facility for you, right? Because I feel like a lot of you, this would fit the facility for you. And a lot of people get hung up on it's a $2.3 million facility. I would never be able to afford that. And that's where the funding boot camp is coming in May, where we will talk about how do you come up with $450,000 to buy it's $350,000 down and then $100,000 in fee and capex. How did you come up with that? And that's the whole point of the funding boot camp.
So and there are, and I've had opportunities for people to, partner with on this, not this one, but on others. And I've thought, well, this is something that I did want to learn myself first. There may come a point in time, and it may be soon actually, where I would be willing and able to take on partners. I've got another guy. I've actually had several kind of climbing out of the woodwork. They all think this thing's worth a fortune already, which is not correct. I don't know why. But what I will say is that is a way of accelerating, the ability to buy and the ability to buy more is by having people join as partners, people who would not necessarily be in the storage business, who might be interested in becoming a silent partner, at least to start.
Yeah.
Because that does give you the ability to get velocity. And that's really, if, like for me, I think that, my goal is to own and control 10 of these things as soon as possible. Now, they wouldn't necessarily they wouldn't all be the same size. No, they wouldn't have to be, could be bigger. The next one that I have under contract is bigger, but not by much, but could be smaller for sure. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's where you see yourself now. So because you got this under contract in like August of last year.
September.
Yeah, it
September.
It took 6 months to close the deal, which is typically
3. No, it took 3. It took 3.
Oh, I thought it was August to January.
No, but with January 2nd, and so it was really, and it was the end of September, so it was really October, November, December. It's really
got it. Okay, so 3 months.
3 months is really what it took.
Too long then.
No, it didn't take that long.
And then,
no.
So now you have another one under contract, which is almost exactly like this one.
So there are a few differences. One is it's nicer. It would be called a Class B facility, and it's close to college campus of Texas Tech University in Lubbock. And it has roughly the same number of units, same square footage, except it also has boat storage, RV storage, car storage, all that kind of stuff. And I think there's actually also an opportunity to build more. Like there's vacant land that could be used for a little more storage there. And it's 90% full. But so then you'd say, well, what's the opportunity? The opportunity is it's managed by a guy who has a full-time job. He's a banker. He's unattentive, 0 insurance, and the rental rates are so low. They should go up 30 or 40% pretty quickly.
So it's an income producing property, but it's not producing the income that it should.
Right.
And that's another thing too, is that's why, like, these types of deals, because this deal here was making 200 grand and the other deal's making a little bit more than that. But like,
it's already at about 300.
Yeah. So banks are willing to fund at 10% down and 8% interest, or 15% down and 8% interest, 8.5% interest. So banks are willing to fund these.
Yeah, I got it at 8.25.
Yeah, but because they are income producing. Right.
So also, yes. And so the other thing, and if they were new development, that would be very different. But the other thing is that, if you went someplace like this, interest rate, in my opinion, is high. Okay. But it was like, well, I want to buy it. And, it's not like every bank in town wants to lend money on some storage facility built in 1960 that's 4 hours away. Yeah. That's not really terribly appealing. They don't understand storage. UMB Bank, which is a huge bank, this is their only storage facility that they have financed.
Oh, really? Wow, that's crazy.
It's the only one. They have none. 0. They have 0.
Well, they're going to fund the second one too.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. Old Rick's made 3 payments. Let's go.
Once you get the storage itch, you can't get out, man. Just like, yeah, let's do it.
So I look at it as a tremendous opportunity to, the things that I have loved about it are, like in a commercial office building, if you get a big tenant, you have to spend an absolute fortune to get them in, between tenant improvements, commissions, all that stuff. You don't have any of that in storage. They can sign a lease, move in today, and and that's what happens. And that's why you'll hear a lot of people say that there are a lot of similarities between storage and actually retail stores, and that's because stuff happens every day. People are coming in every day, that kind of thing. And kind of similarly to the way we talked about calling these people when you get an opportunity to go. The same thing applies to the call centers and the tenants. If they call you and you don't answer the phone, you're never going to get them. If you call them back, they're gone, because they're going to call the next guy right down the street, particularly if it's not the nicest looking place. And this is not. So what do? You have to win on customer service, being nice on the phone, and having the place fairly clean when they get there,
Mhm.
and pricing, and of course, location. You're you know, you want to be the top group in about a 3-mile radius.
So do you guys, when you get together with your team in Copper, do you guys talk about pricing, or do they just handle pricing for you?
They recommend.
They recommend stuff. Okay. They say
They
like,
recommend stuff. Yes.
competition doing this, let's do this.
I have a monthly meeting with my guy, my customer guy,
Okay.
and he, prepares reports and stuff like that, and we meet once a month. And then whenever I need him, I call him or text him. These guys are available. They do a really good job.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good.
Yeah, I've been really happy with them. And
this is a very good way if you're busy and you're not doing what you think that you could be you're doing, then this is what you should be doing. Learning how to come up with the money to put the down payment so that you could just get a loan and just buy a property and just have somebody else manage it. I remember when we were talking and you were like, I had to turn the utilities on.
it didn't even occur to me. Like, I just thought it would automatically happen. And all of a sudden, and this is in like early January, and I called out there and somebody said, hey, it's getting kind of cold in these offices here. I was like, why? Well, the utilities are off. Oh, gosh. So it became a lightning fast emergency for me. But, like that is how you learn.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you got to, like, they did pretty much everything and you had to turn the utilities on.
Yeah.
That's the best part, I think, of the whole thing, so.
Yeah, they do a lot.
This process is totally possible, I think, for anybody that's, open to it.
Well, all I can say about that is I completely agree. 9 months ago, I knew almost nothing about self-storage. I've read tons of books. I listen to podcasts. I've been involved in numerous coaching sessions individually with you, Stacy, and then in the group settings here with Storage Nerds. And I've sat through the boot camps and stuff like that. And, it's not easy, but I do think that there is enough opportunity that those that participate can do really well.
Cool.
And what I've also told my wife, and because our kids are involved, but they really wouldn't even know. We have family meetings where we go through this stuff, but we don't even go in as much depth as we have here. But one of the things that I told my wife is that, hey, if I get hit by a bus, like, this thing will keep going. Don't worry about it.
Right. Exactly. That is so true.
She could get up to speed in about 3 minutes.
Well, and I had another student, we had such a great deal in like Indiana or something. And he was like, my wife doesn't want me to buy this, and it was a bigger deal too. And I was just like, just get a third party management company, because he's a doctor, he's an anesthesiologist, whatever it is. Yeah. And his wife was just like, no. So it's really good that you're even talking to your wife about this so they understand.
Yeah, because and she's in business. She's actually she's a partner in the same accounting firm that I am. So she understands business and stuff, but she has, like, Stacy, you've met her once, and that was before we signed up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
For about 10 minutes, she was on a call one time. She was, okay, great. I'm busy.
She just gave you the thumbs up.
You want to do it? Do it. Yeah.
Good.
But, but I did want to make sure that it wasn't something that I would get involved in where, like, if something happened to me, it would create a big burden on my family. I didn't want to do that.
Yeah. But what you do really well is that you are active. Like, when we send you a deal, you're like, let me meet the owner. Let me call. Let me go there. That's the one thing that I just love, because sometimes
Got to
I
get on it.
Pulling teeth.
Well, so here's the thing. So getting involved in the turnkey acquisition program is not free. Okay. It's not free for any of us. And so in order to get the value out of that, that those who participate want to, you have to jump on it. It's just that, like, why would you go through this if you're getting an opportunity and not do anything?
Right. I agree.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's what you really want to do is you want to get on it. You want to get after it. And that's what I did on the second one too. Got in my car, drove out to Lubbock. It's a great drive out there through the tumbleweeds. It couldn't be any better. And, you know, I didn't meet the owner because they had a broker. They have a broker. So I met with the broker, hung out with him. He asked, by the time I was done with him, he wanted to be partners with me.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. Good. No, I think you do that
And
really well.
he's not going, I'm not doing that on this, but what I'm saying is that, you know, that's how you do it. You go out there and meet with these guys and, you know, they're really nice.
Every facility, all 16, I just went out there and met the owner, got it under contract.
That's how you do it.
That's
Yes.
how you're supposed to do it. Yeah. Good. Well, I commend you. I look forward to.
Well, thanks so much. Yep.
Yeah, you're doing a great job.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay.
If it weren't for you, I wouldn't even be where I wouldn't be 10% of the way along the way.
You're doing great.
I mean,
We're gonna find you some more.